Hi, I'm Diana.
And I'm Zach.
And we're The Farrier's Bellows, a podcast dedicated to bringing you games and tools to take your adventures further.
We're going to be talking about non-traditional indie RPGs, some that have been around for years, others that are newer, to take you beyond the ordinary.
Today, join us as we overcome love's hurdles in Shooting the Moon.
Our first segment is the call to adventure. Shooting the Moon is one of a trio of games by Emily Care Boss that were initially published as separate sort of zine format individual short games that were later collected in the Romance Trilogy circa 2016. As the name implies, they are a series of romance games in which characters are going to be exploring themes of romance and relationships. Shooting the Moon specifically is a game for 2 to 3 players. It is about 2 suitors competing for the affection of their beloved. It is a GM-less game or GM-full game, however you want to look at it. Each player will take on the role of one of the characters in this love triangle, and in a 2-player game, the players will play as suitors with a beloved NPC. While the suitors compete for the affection of their beloved, the beloved must struggle to achieve their own dreams irrespective of the suitors. In the end, the game asks what these characters are willing to do to achieve their heart's desires.
The beloved has an obstacle and a dream that may have nothing to do with the suitors, and the suitors are trying to win the prize and an opportunity for love. Over the course of 3 rounds, the suitors will attempt to gain favor from their beloved while the beloved and the other suitor throw obstacles in their way. Each round, each suitor and the beloved get a turn to set the scene. On a suitor's turn, they team up with the beloved to set a scene in which they work towards their goal, while the other suitor presents hurdles to get in their way. After presenting the hurdle, both teams gather pools of D6 dice based on their attributes, traits, and narrative suggestions. Whichever pool has the most 6s, or the next highest number, wins the conflict, changing character traits and earning points towards their goal. On the beloved's turn, they present a hurdle to both suitors, who compete to overcome it. At the end of the game, players build die pools based on their successes in the last 3 rounds. Whoever has the most 6s in their results win their goal. So Zach, what are some things that you liked about this game?
So I really like the collaborative character creation for this game. At the start of the game, everybody comes together and makes the 3 characters as a group, which might feel a little weird to players who are more used to having dedicated characters that they have full say over, but it really works very well for building up this story and the direction that this story goes and the themes that this story is trying to explore. It takes ownership out of the player's hands in a way that ends up feeling very entertaining and holistic rather than disempowering. So to start off with, everyone together comes up with the beloved's traits. They come up with 6 traits to describe the beloved, which are also world building, and we'll get on that a little bit later. And after deciding on the beloved's traits, you generate your suitor's traits by coming up with synonyms and antonyms of the beloved's traits that the 2 suitors then have to choose from, which I love because it positions both suitors as in some ways compatible and incompatible with the beloved and incompatible and compatible with one another. So it really kind of like perfectly builds up this love triangle. And then after you've determined your own traits, everybody at the table gets to modify those traits. So if you are short-tempered, you, the other suitor, and the beloved might say you are short-tempered except when it comes to children or something like that. Or you are generous, but I don't know, what if you took generous and I was the other suitor, or if I took generous and you were the other suitor, how might you modify that to make it more difficult for me?
So I would try and, I'm always bad at coming up with like 1-word answers for this, but like if you were generous, I would probably say like extremely so.
Extremely, okay.
Like horrifically so.
So you get a chance to like throw a wrench in what somebody else wanted to be like a positive. And then finally, the suitors decide on the prize from their beloved that they are competing for. So in our game, we played actually as K-pop stars.
I'm so excited about this.
Which was really cool and refreshing for me because we generally play... I tend to gravitate towards fantasy. Anytime I get a chance to like push towards fantasy, I push towards fantasy or speculative fiction or something like that. And we played this game with our editor, Zach B. And both Zach B and Diana were at like the height of their K-pop craze.
I think we've plateaued at the same level.
Okay.
I think to say height means it sounds like I've dipped. I've just stopped talking about it.
Okay.
It's there.
I see.
In fact, I have some news to share with him that I know he already knows about his favorite band, but that's besides the point.
So we played in this very extravagant but real world setting, which was very fun. I played the beloved whose goal was to become a movie star. And the prize that we decided on that the two suitors were competing for was a collab song with the with like this huge star. And we all made these three characters together collaboratively and then sort of played out their story. And it felt very collaborative. It felt very good. It felt very interesting. It felt like watching a movie. And I really liked that about it.
I don't have nearly as in-depth of an answer, but I really liked the traits. So when, as you all know at this point, when I play very heavy role-playing games, I tend to freeze up a little bit. I get not analysis paralysis, but like I just don't know that I can think on my feet as well. I'm not as confident with it. So having these traits really helped me sort of guide where I was going. Like I knew where I wanted the scenes to go, but having these traits helps me make sure that I'm on the right page, that I'm playing my character correctly, that I'm not, because there are positive traits and negative traits. So I can't be like the knight in shining armor, or if I am the knight in shining armor, I'm really like condescending and pretentious about it. And so I have that written down. I can play that up. I can use that to my advantage or disadvantage when role playing. It's just another piece of information that I can pull from to make this game a little bit more accessible and a little bit easier to play. And I really enjoy that. And at this point, I feel like everybody probably knows I get a little frozen when we do role play. So anything that helps me do heavy role play. I feel like I get a little frozen when we do. I know. But I feel like I get a little frozen when we do role play. So any mechanics that help me not feel stuck are always really helpful. And that's what these traits do. And I really liked that. And I really, really appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, and in the end, the traits are really all you have to go on.
Right.
This is the structure of this game, and as well as Breaking the Ice, one of the other games in the Romance Trilogy, do some very interesting things with the balance between thematics and mechanics, in that you are given like a lot of freedom thematically to role play and to engage with your character, and then it is simplified mechanically into dice rolls, right? So for your scenes, you have this clear list of traits that you, like you said, that you can draw on, and it's clear, it's simple. The presenting of a scene and just role playing out a scene is very accessible because you can take those you and the beloved and the other suitor can just take your list of traits and be like, okay, how would I react to this scene?
Yeah, I completely agree. It just helps kind of keep your head on straight when there is so much other stuff going on. It just kind of helps you stay in your character and keep with your character.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. Is there anything else that you liked about this game?
Yes. So there are two main forms of this game. There's the 2016 Romance Trilogy, which is a pretty, it's not like terribly hefty, but it's a nice sized book with a lot of really great resources in it. And that came out in 2016. And I have not seen the individual games for sale for a while. I got our copy of Shooting the Moon back at PAX East in probably 2012, 2013, maybe even earlier. I always forget when my like early PAX Easts were. You can still get the individual sort of zine-sized Shooting the Moon on Drive-Thru RPG as a PDF, and they are pretty similar. But one change that was made to Shooting the Moon in the Romance Trilogy is that the beloved gets to present a prologue at the start of the game, which is not in the 2008 version that we have. And I think that is a great addition because it gives the beloved a little bit more to do. And it gives them this great way, like if this were a movie, it is a perfect way to start off the movie. The beloved presents themselves, presents their dream and the dream that they're going for. And I think we used it to also introduce the two suitors.
I think so.
And it's just a nice way to put the beloved in the spotlight. I found that in the 2008 version, without that prologue, I kind of felt like the beloved still has plenty to do, but it was nice to give them a little bit more action, a little bit more screen time to themselves, to establish themselves as an independent character.
Yeah, because otherwise they're just interacting with the suitors, exclusively.
Yeah. And that's great, and that's fine, but I like the addition of the prologue. I think it's a good mechanical change in the Romance Trilogy edition.
Yeah, I agree. I love romance. I could just end it there. But what I really like about this game and how this game does romance is that it is the epitome of the will they, won't they, love triangle, second love syndrome, all of those things that are so prevalent in my K-dramas and so prevalent in rom-coms and all of this stuff. And I love it. I think this game does the romance media genre very well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a good representation of real life romance, because if it is, I'm so sorry. Your life is so dramatic. It does not need to be, and I apologize. But I think it tells a romantic story. I think it tells a romance story, because romantic and romance are different.
Mm-hmm.
I think it tells a romance story very, very well, and it builds that drama very, very well. And I love it. Love me some romance.
You used the term second love syndrome?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
It is a thing in Korean dramas.
Oh, what is that?
So it's a thing in everywhere, but the name I got from Korean dramas.
Okay.
So it basically is when you watch a movie or you're watching a TV show and there's a love triangle, right? But there's very clearly an OTP that the writers are leaning towards. This is very clearly the main guy or the main person that the main character is going to end up with. Very clearly, character A and character B are going to end up together.
Yeah.
But they've introduced character C for a little bit of drama.
Okay.
And the main character and character C sometimes end up, in compromising positions, but really their heart belongs to you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like that fake love triangle.
Yeah, so it's not quite a love triangle, but it's like a love rival.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of. And usually they have interest in the main character, but the main character is either slightly confused or does not have interest in them. So that's second love syndrome. Or second lead. It's second lead syndrome, but I call it second love syndrome because it's the same thing.
Okay. Another thing that I really like is kind of going back to those characteristics of the beloved. When you are creating the beloved, you are also creating what is of value in the world. The beloved is the embodiment of what is valued and what is desirable in your setting. So everything that you ascribe to the beloved, whether or not you say positive or negative things in our world, or that you would personally consider positive or negative, they are positive in the setting. What I think is really interesting about that is it feels very mythical, very Arthurian, very traditional romantic, right? Romanticism romantic.
Okay.
It feels very archetypal of the genre in a way that I just find very interesting, that you are saying that this character is the embodiment of what is good, and you are making a statement about the world, and then you're making flawed suitors who are not just pursuing the beloved as a character, but are pursuing the beloved as an ideal, which I think makes for a very interesting cast creation. When you're creating this cast, it feels very solid. It feels very whole. It feels like a movie in a way that I really enjoy.
I did not consider that. like Arthurian. I don't know. I would not have made that connection. This is why you do this podcast. That's very interesting, though. That is very interesting.
So there was one thing that I had a question about, though, that I think you and I both, it looks like our notes are kind of like, they seem related to me. This game feels, or started to feel a little bit board gamey as we were going through it. Mm-hmm. I felt like sometimes the mechanics and the thematic elements, namely like the traits and the die pools, right? Those are really the only two things that together make the game, right? You have these traits that make up your character and the die pools that are sort of derived from the traits that you brought up in the fiction and sort of like just a mechanical marker for like randomizing how well you do, which you could say for any game. But I felt there was a little bit of a disconnect between them at times, especially as we got later on in the game and we started like getting more and more traits. The die mechanic, the die pool, sometimes felt a little anticlimactic to me in a way that started to feel a little board game-esque to me. It felt less role-playing game and more board game, more kind of just straightforward die rolling. I didn't feel like I had a lot of emotional engagement in those die rolls or the results of the die rolls. And I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing that I had like questions about was my character, my suitor, ended up with a lot of negative traits by the end. And changing them, because you can, that's an option, changing them felt like cheating the system. It felt like cheating the game. So how do you play this game, not end up as a total douchebag, but not cheat the game? Right? Like, yeah. How do you you're gamifying this game. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to make this work to how do I make this work to my advantage without feeling like I'm cheating? Because that's what it felt like. I ended up with a lot of negative traits because I was like, I don't know how to change this. It's not like this is over years and years and years. It's not like it's a year in between each scene. It's a day, a week. Like, I wouldn't have made this much personal growth in a day and a week. Some of my traits were really bad.
Which I think comes back to that sort of disconnect between some of the mechanical results and the way that the traits are playing out.
Right.
Because you don't feel like you have a justifiable reason to change those traits when all that happened was you got a good die roll.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's an element there's the free play element where you're role playing out the scene beforehand, but then it feels weird to be role playing out the scene based on the traits you have, then get a lucky die roll, and then be able to change a trait
that you were just
engaging with.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it felt like I was cheating.
Yeah, it feels a little weird. And it has a little bit of a disconnect to it. And I think both of our issues are related. I will say that one thing that I kind of like about that disconnect, so I think this could be viewed as either a positive or a negative, depending on what perspective you're coming from. But it makes me feel a little bit disconnected from the character personally, but it allows me to engage more with the story as a whole, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm viewing the whole story more from a bird's eye view, and I'm not getting too wound up over whether or not my character has a good or bad story. I'm enjoying the story that's being told versus like trying to succeed, if that makes sense.
It does make sense because that's exactly how I felt. Like, my character did not succeed. I did make my character have a very good ending, I thought, but my character didn't succeed in winning the game. But I wasn't like, not winning the game, but winning the heart of the beloved. I wasn't heartbroken at all about it. And actually, I was actually really excited for the other character, the other player, to win.
Yeah.
Or not win. That's not really the terms you should use.
Gain
but like,
the beloved's heart. Like, right. Win the prize.
Right, exactly. I was like excited for them. And I think you're right. I think it's because you get this bird's eye view and you kind of see the whole story playing out instead of just your little section. And you don't care about just your little section. You care about the whole story. You care about everything else that's going on.
Yeah, and I actually really like that about Shooting the Moon.
I agree.
Did anything else stand out to you?
I didn't read the Romance Trilogy version of Shooting the Moon. I read the 2008 version. And in the 2008 version, there are all these like, and a lot of role-playing games have these, but it's kind of amazing when you think that this book came out in 2008 and we've talked about it before, especially some of the earlier ones, some of the earlier role-playing games, you can see how every role-playing game is building on something, like a good thing that happened from the role-playing game before it, right? This one has text boxes and examples, and it like really spells it out for you. And this isn't a really super complicated game, but I think she did a really good job of trying to explain this game as you're learning this game, because it can be, learning games can be kind of complicated. And those text boxes and those examples, and there's example games and scenarios at the end of it, I think they do a really good job of showing you how this game comes together and plays at your table.
Yeah, there's a lot of learning support for sure.
Yeah, and I like that a lot, especially because this game came out in 2008, knowing, and this might be just some knowledge that I have because of Farrier's Bellows, knowing that some of those earlier games didn't have that kind of support because they didn't know they needed it yet. So I just really liked that this had it. But like I said, I read the 2008 version she'd already gone through. There were already 2 other editions of this game. So
yeah, that's in the 2016 edition. And the 2016 edition just kind of builds up on that.
Right.
Has more support. And one of the things that I really like about the Romance Trilogy is that it also has a lot of support for playing these games safely and acknowledging the genre, which might also be in the 2008 edition, but I explicitly noted it in the Romance Trilogy edition. There's a lot of safety precautions, stuff that was developed later, talking about like lines and veils and fading to black, and having open discussions about things like genre and giving it like a movie rating so that everybody is on the same page. There's a lot of support for safety tools in this, encouraging you to take breaks in between each round, that I think are really valuable and really useful, especially in this genre. You need safety tools.
I agree.
And the other thing that I really like about the Romance Trilogy edition is that for all 3 games, it comes with the main text of the game and then a whole bunch of mods, hacks, different ways to play the game. There's a mode in this for playing, I believe, with up to 7 players for shooting the moon, ways to play on teams, ways to play totally different genres. And I think that is really cool, really useful. I think there's even like a LARP or a live action version. There's online play. There's just a lot of really cool stuff, extra material for exploring more with these 3 romance games that I think is really valuable and really like makes this a really interesting collection of games. The art is also gorgeous. That's it.
The art is gorgeous. I can agree to that. I can agree to all of it, but the art is gorgeous.
All right, let us approach the Inmost Cave. This week, I think it would only be appropriate for us to talk about romance in games. I don't think this is actually something that we've talked about, even though
it's come up a couple times, yeah. As like secondary themes, but I don't think it's been a main theme.
Yeah, I think you almost always bring this up as a story that you would like to tell with this game.
Shocking, really.
So we finally got to play a game built for romance.
Yep.
Which I don't think we've done since Kagematsu.
I agree. And in Kagematsu, we talked about power imbalance.
Yeah, we didn't actually well, I'm sure we talked a little bit about romance. But this does romance, I would say, differently than Kagematsu.
Oh,
very
definitely.
Differently than Kagematsu.
Absolutely.
And different than some other games we've played, like Star-Crossed, right? Mm-hmm. Romance is this sort of, it's a very interesting genre. It's literally one of the most popular types of genre fiction there is. Yes. I'm pretty sure that genre or romance novels outsell every other genre of novel. Romance films are huge blockbusters. It is an immensely popular genre, and it is one that I think people in the past, probably at the time that these were written, less so now, were a little bit afraid of to engage with in role-playing games. Mm-hmm. These are also, like, to my knowledge, very early examples of like duet games. I don't know very many other duet games that came out at this time period. There's definitely a few, but not as many as I think are around now. So romance is this genre that's traditionally been kind of scary in role-playing games because it's a very intimate subject to explore. Everyone knows that role-playing games are a medium in which you experience a lot of bleed, a lot of emotional overlap between you as a player and your characters. And so it can be kind of intimate. It can make you feel vulnerable to explore romance at the table when you are playing what is quote unquote a game, right?
Yeah.
But this should be no different than all of the other very hard subjects that we have been exploring using role-playing games. There are games that explore the effects of capitalism, the effects of colonialism. We've covered on this podcast games that explore religious violence, that explore fascist violence. And so it's interesting that have always, in role-playing games, been very willing to explore violence, but are more hesitant to sit down with someone else and explore romance.
And I think that's because romance is so much more intimate, and everybody has some sort of experience with romance, whether it be good or bad. Mm-hmm. But not everybody has intimate, personal experience with violence, right? Like, yeah. I've never been involved in a war. I can say that pretty confidently. I've never been directly involved in a war, but I did play Great Ranks, and that was, a really moving game for me. But I am in a relationship, and so playing this game, and I've been in other relationships, so playing this game about relationships is very intimate, and it's tapping into a lot of personal things, or it can tap into a lot of personal things. And being intimate in front of other people is hard. It's really hard, especially your friends. There's a different kind of intimacy than a romantic intimacy, right? Like, I'm a very open person. As a general rule, Diana is a very open person. And so I don't know that I necessarily struggle with intimacy, but there are parts of a romantic relationship that I would not touch in a romantic game at a table full of people that I am closest with. I just wouldn't do it. And even though I myself am a pretty open, intimate person, I don't know that I would touch it. And so I recognize that not everybody is as open and intimate as I am with complete strangers sometimes. So this can be really hard because of that intimate relationship, because this touches on every single person's life. Every single person has some sort of relationship with romance. Yeah. Positively or negatively.
Yeah, I think that is a good lead into, there is a game in the Romance Trilogy that I have not played, and I don't really have any intention of playing it. It's called Under My Skin, and it is a game, according to the text, revolves around faith, love, and commitment. The characters are friends, some couples, some single, each of whom becomes drawn to someone new. And that is too personal for me to deal with. I don't think I can personally deal with that in a game, which is so backwards in a lot of ways, because I'm willing to explore so many dark and painful subjects, but not that one.
Because it's personal.
Yeah.
Because it is personal to you. And even if you've gone through horrific things in your life, there is something peculiar and separate about romance and romantic topics that I think hits people differently. It hits differently than violence does. Yeah. Or it hits differently than like depression and other big emotions, right? Other big things in your life. Romance just hits differently. It hits a different part of you.
Yeah, and it's hard to make yourself vulnerable with that part. I think I've only ever played romance games with you.
Yeah.
We played Shooting the Moon with Zach B joined us. We had some friends join us when we played Kagematsu. But even then, my character was pursuing you. Right. So I still got to feel very like comfortable being like, oh, I'm flirting with you.
Right. And Zach B is a close friend, and I was a suitor and he was a suitor, and the relationship that you two were building was very different than the relationship that I was building with you.
So one of my goals in 2020 is to play Star-Crossed with someone who is not you.
What? That would be very interesting.
I've never played Star-Crossed or Breaking the Ice or Shooting the Moon. I'd love to play Shooting the Moon with other people as well. I want to play these games with other people, but it's stressful. It's kind of stressful.
Yeah.
But I think what Shooting the Moon does so well is it comes together to build this very classically romantic setting. The character traits, their engagements, the hurdles that they're facing, this web of entanglements that comes across in play is very classically romantic, very classically romantic comedy. I felt like I was watching a K-drama in our game.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And because Shooting the Moon specifically is a game about a romance story, it does not feel particularly heavy on the bleed for me. When we played, I didn't feel a lot of personal connection. That's not true.
It didn't hit that intimate withdrawal button that you have.
Yes. I had more of a bird's eye view of the story in this game versus a game like Starcrossed, where I'm feeling very embodiment of the character.
Right.
Because I'm only in that character's head and I'm only exploring that character's emotions. There's
nowhere to withdraw to. Whereas in this game, there are several ways that you can kind of take a step back if you need to take that step back.
Yes, absolutely.
Like built into the game is a safety kind of mechanism.
Yeah. It feels like a group of friends are coming together to tell a story, the story of a romantic comedy or a romantic movie, and everybody's working together with this cast. There's a level of separation in Shooting the Moon that I don't feel in like Kagematsu, because in Kagematsu I'm one character who's pursuing one goal and is like explicitly like trying to push people out. Or this might be also because I was playing The Beloved and I was playing a slightly different kind of more GM-ish role.
Right.
I don't know if that is also playing into it.
I think it is.
Okay.
I do think it is. But I do think that this game does a very good job of kind of keeping you in that bird's eye view. I do think that. Because you're not just focused on your character. At some point, you are going to give the other character traits. So you have to be thinking about the other character as well. Mm-hmm. And even if it's like, oh, well, they're a dick, I'm going to give them dickish traits. You're still thinking about them.
Yeah.
So it's taking you out of your character. You are then watching the Beloved interact with this other character, and you have to come up with some ideas as well. So this game does a really good job of taking you out of just being in your character and in your moment, because you have to interact as the world with these other characters. And so even when you're not the Beloved, it mechanically takes you out of your character's head and into a bird's eye view, like a director's seat. I think the analogy of a bunch of friends coming together to tell this story is exactly correct. I think that's what we're doing. We're not being these characters, we're creating these characters.
Yeah. And I think that is a compliment. I really enjoy that of this game. I can't right now think of another game that it felt as much like watching a movie as this game did, which I think is a testament to how effortless it felt to play. I was actively engaging with and playing the game, but also kind of just felt like I was sitting back and watching this story. And I really like that about this. So really, this is a game about characters with romantic goals, but that gives players sort of a bird's eye view to their story. And I think part of that is sort of that disconnect between the die pool mechanic and just kind of like interpreting that quick die pool. I don't think it is a game that is meant to make you feel like you are exploring romance. It is a voyeur's sort of romantic experience.
I 100% agree with you. I think that is the best way of describing this game.
And I also wonder what would happen if we got more practice with it.
Right.
I think if we played this game more and got a better feel for the pacing in terms of doing that free play and then leading into die rolls and interpreting die rolls, I think the more practice we got with this, the more involved we might feel with the story. And I wonder if that would start to change.
Maybe. But one of the issues that I have with games like Starcrossed is just a very easy to grab example of this, is that I get very uncomfortable with the total intensity of it. And so I don't want to play those games over again. I would play this game over again, though.
Okay.
Because I can take that step back because I can get that bird's eye view without being completely and totally immersed in it and being like in the middle of the drama, which is just like it's just too much for me in my poor heart. Sometimes it's just too much.
Yeah.
But I do wonder how the game would change if we had more practice with it. I agree. Now, is this a new player friendly game? And my answer to that question that I've just posed is yes, I do. I do think that this is a new player-friendly game. This is a roleplay heavy game, and they do kind of get a bad rap from me sometimes. But I think that with the collaborative world building and the collaborative character creation and the traits kind of guiding you, I think that this game is very helpful to players who are new to the role-playing world. I also think that it's a new player-friendly game because it is a smaller table. It is two to three people sitting around a table. If you're gonna make a mistake, it's gonna be less, I guess, embarrassing. It should never be embarrassing when you, air quotes, make a mistake at a table. Like, your table should never make you feel bad about it. But if you're new and you've got all those anxieties and you're really worried about making mistakes like I was, 2 to 3 people at a table, 2 other people around you maximum to help you play this game, I think makes this game very new player friendly. I think it makes it a good introduction into role-playing games. And I think it has all this scaffolding to help you along, to help you get comfortable with roleplay, open roleplay, that I think it just does a really good job of that.
Our next segment is Return with the Elixir, in which we explore other books, movies, games, and media that would inspire or also express these ideas. I'd like to just cite some of the obvious other games that sort of explore romance. First is Starcross by Alex Roberts, which uses a Jenga tower to simulate the tension of romance. Another is P.H. Lee's Hot Guys Making Out, which comes with a content warning because it includes some problematic issues like differences in age between the romantic characters, differences in power dynamics, that uses a card mechanic and a sort of lead and follow mechanic similar to Starcrossed, which can be hacked very easily and very well for settings that might be more comfortable. A good example of that is HGMO Sherlock, which is a romance between Sherlock and Watson that is available in Codex Lies.
Mine are K-dramas. And I think that's very specifically because of the type of story that we played with K-pop idols. But I'm just going to list 5. It's not a lot.
Just 5.
Just a simple 5. So Love Alarm, which is available on Netflix, does a love triangle differently and complicatedly.
Okay.
It does it, and it's good, and it's on Netflix, so you can see that one.
What is complicated about it?
I literally can't tell you anything about it. I will give away the plot, and also it will take me 45 minutes,
okay.
So I can't do that. My Love from the Star is actually the drama that I pulled my character that I ended up playing for this game from.
Oh, okay.
So that one's really fun. It's not very love triangle-ish. There's like a second love syndrome in it. Not really a love triangle. Cheese in the Trap is very second love syndrome-y and sad and good, and everyone should watch it. Boys Over Flowers / Meteor Garden. That is one story, before you judge me. I know I said 5. It is the same story. It's based on a manga that's been told in countless languages, and it either goes by Boys Over Flowers or Meteor Garden.
Okay.
Both Boys Over Flowers and Meteor Garden are both available on Netflix. Don't quote me on that. I know Meteor Garden is available on Netflix. I believe Boys Over Flowers is also available on Netflix. And the last one is Strong Girl Bong Soon. That one's also available on Netflix, and that was just really fun and cute and a love story police procedural.
Is it
also on Netflix?
That one also has like some superhero elements in it, right?
Yes, yeah, it does. Yeah.
Just realized that I forgot Kagematsu. in our other romance games.
How dare you?
Which follows a sort of similar structure. You have people competing for the love of a beloved. You have sort of a free play element until you engage in a hurdle that you have to overcome. Kind of has a very similar structure. Is very competitive, which I love about Kagematsu.
I still would love to play one of the suitors in Kagematsu. I was Kagematsu, and I think it'd be fun to do.
We'll make another game of that happen. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not talk about the other games in the Romance Trilogy. As we've said before, there are 3 games in the Romance Trilogy by Emily Care Boss. Shooting the Moon is one of them. The first in the trilogy is Breaking the Ice. This is another GM-less game for 2 players about a potential couple going on their first 3 dates, where you're asking the question, will love bloom or will it fizzle out over the course of these 3 dates? Mishaps and misunderstandings create hurdles for the characters to overcome on the path to love. This is another game that it's sort of similarly structured to Shooting the Moon. We've played Breaking the Ice before, where Shooting the Moon has 3 rounds. Breaking the Ice has 3 dates. You are gathering up dice pools to try to overcome challenges that occur on the dates, things that get in the way, hurdles that try to stop your romance from taking root. And based on the results of those die pools, you gain attraction for the other person. And if there's enough attraction by the end of the game, you have a happy ending. Characters are built. One of the things I really like about Breaking the Ice is that you make your character by starting out with a favorite color and then using word association to develop traits and identities from there. This also has a lot of really good safety tools, laying out ratings, genres, and veils and boundaries to safely play. Breaking the Ice is a lot of fun. I feel like it is even a little bit more dissociated between character and mechanic than Shooting the Moon, but it also might be that we played Breaking the Ice a long time ago and didn't really have a lot of experience back then, and playing it again we might find a different experience. Under My Skin is a little bit more of a Jeep form game where you are playing as a group of friends who are couples or people who are already in relationships who are friends, and you start getting entangled in those relationships. Mechanically, it seems very strong, but I must admit I have not played this game because I feel like the bleed would be a little bit much for me. I feel like the topics might be a little bit difficult for me to engage with, and so I have not played Under My Skin firsthand. But I think for anyone who is comfortable exploring romance and all of the different things all the different elements, both the good and the bad of romantic life, the Romance Trilogy hits on those things. What is a story you would like to tell with this game?
The first, and this is probably a first for me, but one with less romantic love.
Oh.
This might be a first for me. Maybe using a different kind of love or maybe a more innocent kind of love. But I think that would be really interesting to play it less as I want to date you and more as maybe an innocent, I just want to get to know you, or maybe a more mature, I just need some companionship sort of thing. I think that would be interesting.
Well, luckily for you, this game, the Romance Trilogy supports that.
I know.
It has mods for exactly that. One of which is one that I would really like to play called The Prize. It does away with the romance, and instead you are seekers attempting to gain power or knowledge from a master.
That is different than what I said.
Yes, but I think it could also be, you could also do the same thing,
yes,
right?
Yeah, I agree.
I also think there is another one that is explicitly just non-romantic love, but you're just kind of competing for there's a Breaking the Ice mod about creating childhood friendships.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking childhood friendships, or just older people aren't always looking for relationships, but they are looking for companionship.
Yeah.
I mean, not just older people, but you see that as a trope in stories about older people. So is there any other story that you'd like to tell?
I mean, for me, it's all the mods that are included in the Romance Trilogy book, the different forms. There are 2 forms of Shooting the Moon. One is called Alone Against the World, which is a solo game where you alone are playing 2 adventurers trying to survive a harsh landscape. And the similar Versus Nature, which is for 2 or more players exploring 2 people trying to survive in the wilderness. There's also a bunch of companion games at the back, which is, I was looking for these earlier. The book is also like so nicely laid out with, you can see like, what is that called? What part of the book is that called? The trim? No, you can see, like, when you look at the book sideways, you can see the sections broken out in, like, gray tabs. It's very well done and very useful. I think there's a Breaking the Ice about playing, like, gods creating the world. There's a hack of Shooting the Moon that uses a chessboard called Love is a Battlefield. There's a lot of cool, like, different takes on romance, different takes on competition in this book that I want to explore more, and just very cool.
Yeah.
How about you?
I want to go hard on the romance.
I just read this. This is terrible.
I want to get filthy. I want to get filthy with it.
Say that.
I want a lot of hard, gross, uncomfortable come-ons. I want possible sex scenes. I want maybe even a slap and kiss scene. Like I just want it to be filthy and hardcore. I want to up the rating. I want to take it from a PG-13 to a NC-17.
Oh my god.
Skip right over R.
No.
I think
I refuse.
Which isn't that ridiculous? Isn't NC-17 harder than R, but R you have to be 18 to get into C?
I don't know. But
I just think it would be interesting. We're just talking about other stories. I think it would be interesting.
Yeah. So that sounds like it would more emulate some of your
my romance novels, my trashy romance novels.
Well, no, we aren't saying trashy anymore.
No, I am. No. I am saying because some of them are trash. Some of them are very, very good. I am the consumer of this. Some of them are very, very good. Some of them are amazing stories. Some of them do romance really well. And some of them are trash. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying my trash. But some of them are trashy. And I like my trash.
This is a conversation for a different time.
I think so.
I think on
different podcast.
On the power of language and what we mean when we say things, which we might disagree on.
Yeah. Anyway.
But I think, yes, the romance novels that lean more towards the erotic.
Which are all I read.
I don't think I could.
You don't have to support
I can't follow you to this place.
That's fine. That's totally fine.
So, we have a big announcement. First off, we want to apologize for the long hiatus we've had in between this episode and the last one. A series of issues came up, and partially as a result, we have some other unfortunate news. This is going to be our last episode of Farrier's Bellows.
If you follow us on Twitter, you may have heard that we are about in the middle of our first pregnancy. We're very, very excited, and we're so thankful for everyone who's reached out with all of their kind words.
Yes, that is amazing news that we are very excited about, but it comes with some less amazing news. Unfortunately, it has been a difficult past few months. We lost our buffer episodes on Farrier's and have had a lot of difficulty scheduling the time to read these amazing games, dedicate a day to playing them, and producing the show. It has taken us 3 hours to record this episode because we have to stop because of medical issues. So we are under no illusion that our time is going to clear up with a newborn, and the time that we would want to dedicate to making the show good is just a resource that we no longer have.
As a result, we're really, really sad to be closing up the shop windows on the Farrier's Bellows. This has been an amazing opportunity, and we are unbelievably grateful to have participated in it for as long as we have.
We are so thankful that all of you allowed us to join you on your adventures and to try to share games with you. We want to give a very heartfelt thanks to Jason, Lowell, and the rest of the Gauntlet for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this community. We will be sticking around and playing games with the Gauntlet and with everyone else, and we hope to be voices you hear again someday in the future. Thank you all for joining us as we explored some amazing games.
We also want to say thank you to our editor, Zach B., for helping us create this show and give it to you guys in a way that makes sense and is clear and is listenable and is enjoyable. So thank you, Zach B., for all of the hard work that you have put into all of the Farriers episodes.
The Farriers Bellows is a production of The Gauntlet. You can find The Gauntlet on Twitter at GauntletRPG. You can find us on our website at gauntlet-rpg.com, and we are on Patreon at patreon.com/gauntlet, where you can contribute to The Gauntlet and support some amazing podcasts like Plus One Forward, The Gauntlet Podcast, and more. You should also make sure to check out the forums at forums.gauntlet-rpg.com. And if you would like to keep up with us in the world, you can find me on Twitter at ZWGarth.
And me at ICDiana. Until next time, you cannot dream yourself into a character. You must hammer and forge yourself one.
Remember to always shoot for the moon, and never stop bringing new games to the table.
Hey listeners, we have a couple of exciting things to tell you about. The first is that Codex Blood 3 is now available in the Gauntlet Patreon feed. Blood 3 is 62 pages long and features some amazing stuff. Blood and Mirrors, a vampire hack of Ebediah Ravashal's Swords Without Master. The Caledonian Boar, a game of heroism and myth inspired by the story game classic The Final Girl. 3 Decisive Rounds, a 2-player game about a pair of boxers and their hardscrabble journey to the ring. The Giant's Carcass, a new expansion for Trophy Dark. And the new miscellany 3 Dozen More cult horror movies. The second thing that we want to tell you about is Brindle Wood Bay. Brindle Wood Bay is an original game that combines Murder, She Wrote style cozy mysteries with Lovecraftian horror. It's a full-sized, powered by the Apocalypse game coming to the Gauntlet Patreon feed in mid-January as a gift to folks who support us at the $6 or higher level. You'll get a PDF of the rules text, play sheets, and 5 mysteries, so you can start playing Brindle Wood Bay right away. The game is another way for us to say thanks for all your support. There has never been a better time to be a Gauntlet patron. Head over to patreon.com/gauntlet to get Codex Blood 3 and Brindle Wood Bay before they leave the feed.